Yeah, so here we go. So it started with just me, and here's the long story of it. I was what we used to call an illegal alien, but we'll call it now, it's called now undocumented. And so I was working in resort ski areas, resort towns in the northeast of the US, and between restaurants and other jobs, I got a job. A friend of mine offered me a job at a jewelry store. And this particular town, Provincetown, was quite an alternative town. So we would make commitment rings for same-sex couples, and also, gay couples would come in and they'd want this, what seemed then to be crazy S&M jewelry, just like if you could have seen like labrettes with, say, like quarter-inch beads and, not very utilitarian, let's say. And so I used to sell the jewelry, but being a shy English person, I was pretty scared, and I would always hide in the back, and I taught myself how to make jewelry because, it felt brutal taking 4 credit cards from somebody for a ring.
Yeah.
So I taught myself how to make jewelry, and then as I was making more and more of these things in the early 90s, it kind of occurred to me, why does this have to be so ugly? I mean, we can kind of make it pretty, and there wasn't really any gold around, so I just kind of made a really representative line in gold. I moved to California because I got a job in a ski resort teaching little kids how to ski, and I had a pretty bad accident, broke my leg on a dirt bike, and so then I couldn't cook anymore. So I drove my bike to San Francisco with my crutches tucked under, and I got my first account, which was body manipulations in San Francisco. Yeah. And I showed them these pieces, and they kind of went, oh, this, and it was very basic, simple pieces, but with some simple gemstones. And from there, 1 account, 2 accounts, 3 accounts, I was making it in my house in Tahoe and also doing 2 other jobs. And then eventually, every time I got an employee or 2, every time it would snow, I wouldn't have an employee because they'd just go on the mountain and go snowboarding. So eventually I realized I had to kind of move to where there was a jewelry district and where I could actually find some good, talented help that would stick with me. So I moved to Los Angeles. So started with just me. I used to do everything, make everything, solder everything, set everything, polish everything, and then slowly, 2 people, 3 people. My now wife, Kerry, who was my friend, we went to the same high school in England. She, after my motorcycle accident, helped me kind of get the business going. I didn't even know how to, being an illegal alien, I didn't even know how to write a check. I'd never had a bank account, right? So she showed me how to write checks and balance the checkbook. And then when I moved to LA, we realized that we were more than friends. So she came with me, and, then we started just hiring people. And now we have about 100. So yeah, 100 people, and there are over 5 factories in Los Angeles, 3 out where I am right now, and then 2 in downtown Los Angeles, because we do the casting down there, because they're on the buildings that they're made for the jewelry industry, so there are scrubbers for the pollutants that come out. Yeah. Out here, we can't get the permits to do that. So, yeah, we have 5 factories. We have a few remote people. We have somebody that works in Boise, Idaho, Lucy, who does customer service, and somebody that works now in Tallahassee, Florida, that does customer service, which is the miracles of modern technology. They can avoid the high taxes in California and still work. And it's amazing. Nobody actually realizes that because our phones, it's an internet system, that they're actually totally remote and they're just linked into our network. So it's kind of cool. And we'll continue that where we can, because I want people to live where they want to live. In LA, the city is not for everybody. It's a really tough place. It's quite expensive. I love it because I'm an outdoors person. I love dirt biking. I love hiking, backpacking, stuff like this, right? But, a lot of people don't. The traffic's a nightmare, and it's crazy expensive. So, we try and let people live where they can. But where our factories are, it's kind of in from downtown a little bit, and it's a confluence of freeways, so we can attract talent from Orange County, Los Angeles County, San Bernardino County, and even Riverside County. So, jewelry making is a sort of a dying trade a little bit, and it's important for us to have that influx. And I think not being in the Los Angeles area would have been much more difficult for us to grow and also have the quality that we have. And by the way, the jewelers that work for me now, that work with me, they far surpassed my talents. Right, so during the middle of this summer that was fraught with kind of craziness and the disruption and, sort of the awakening of reawakening, I should say, of realizing that there are some super social justice problems that exist in the United States and elsewhere. We looked around and we, wanted to do something instead of just giving it lip service. We wanted to actually do something. And over the years, I can't have helped but notice, we put out open calls for people to come to work with us. We very rarely get Black people applying. Why? Because nobody wants to take the effort to teach a Black person how to make jewelry, because there's that systemic trust issue. In the jewelry industry, there's been a systemic trust issue with Black people. We've had a couple that have come through. Quite frankly, their talent was really bad, but in one particular instance, and you'll laugh, I had this poor person stay for 3 days. I'm like, please, can you just get this? Just solder it. I tried and tried and tried with this person. My team really wanted him. He was so lovely, so sweet, but in the end, he just couldn't do the job that was required. And we didn't think that there was a way to learn, but it kind of broke our hearts collectively, and that stayed with us. And so that kind of triggered everything that was going on in the summer. Like, what, we need to do something here. We can't just post something on Instagram and not do anything, right? And so this is what we came up with, and we came up with this. I mean, I don't know if you've been to Los Angeles, but there are certain neighborhoods you have. Yeah, so South LA, which used to be called South Central, it can be pretty grim in the evening, and there just are not much opportunities. There's food deserts, it's just liquor stores, all the rest of it.
Airport, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. There's Compton, there's Linwood, there's a few places that are pretty grim. And, it just came to us, look, we can do this pretty easily. We have a really awesome master jeweler that works in one of our downtown factories called A10, and he was actually taught classically in a school, which is quite unusual. So he had a curriculum and everything. He's a wonderful man. And, we got together with him and we kind of designed this curriculum, and we said we wanted to find BIPOC people from, that are locally based. So we want to help in our local Los Angeles area. And we reached out to a guy called the Gangster Gardener, who was really awesome. He's really funny. I think his slogan is "Grow some motherfucking kale." And basically, he plants these urban gardens in South Central. He's absolutely rad. He's even done a masterclass, and so he's really well connected in the South LA community. And we put this out to him. He was really, really excited about it. He put it out to all of his people, and we got some recipients. And we went through and we gave the ones that we thought were best suited an aptitude test. Basically, these people had never held a file before, they'd never touched a jewelry making instrument before, but they were interested. And we gave them the aptitude test, and the two that we hired did the best, basically. Nyla came from Phoenix, Arizona, though, but she had just moved to LA, so she was in LA. I think she grew up in LA and then was in Phoenix. But Akil, our other apprentice, he's LA born and bred, South LA born and bred. So they have been working now for, I would say, about 6 months, and they are starting to make orders. And the thing is, we had to teach them how to file, so that the first jobs, and you will see this in the next few weeks, because we're going to put it on a little landing page for this movement. Their first jobs were just cutting little patterns out of brass, filing things into round balls. They didn't touch a soldering torch for, months. So they really learned from the ground up. They learned what the tools are, how to use the tools, right from the ground up. And they've learned a little bit about everything. They're going to start to learn some gem setting soon. And it's a year program. They're free to leave after a year. I mean, they're free to leave whenever. But, after a year, the idea is we'll offer them a full-time job. And I think in both of these young people's cases, we will offer them a full-time job because they're awesome. And, go on from there. Now, of course, we have finite resources. I mean, I would love to hire 10 people to do this because, it's really nice to bring young people that are not jaded and don't have bad habits into this. But, of course, it's expensive. We pay them $15 an hour, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot more than the minimum wage in most of the United States. And, we're teaching them, and of course, they melt a ferocious amount of jewelry. They take up quite a big amount of time, but it's been amazing to see them progress like this. And I go and check on them at least twice a week, and we've done a couple of photo shoots with them. We just completed one last week. They're shy as all hell, but we're going to put that on our landing page. And we're in the process of reaching out to another person. This person is a young lady, a Hispanic lady she used to be called Chrissy, but she's changed her name to Sprout. And we met her at REI. She was working at REI, which is a sports store. and she saw my wife's BVLA necklace, and she basically like, oh my God, I love that brand, which is crazy, right? And so we got talking to her, and she's like, God, it's been my dream to make jewelry. And I said, well, why don't you apply then, please? And that was a few months ago, and now we feel that we can take another person on. So we're going to continue to do that. And some people have asked us to open it up to anybody. And I said, this is not the time yet. We want to still keep it with people of color. It's not, white people have plenty of opportunity. White people can go to GIA. White people can ask daddy to buy them a jewelry school or whatever. But, a lot of people in underserved communities cannot, excuse me. So, that was the crux behind it. And so it came from a sort of altruistic thing. And it came from this one person that we really wanted to hire because we recognize that there are no black people. We have in our whole organization of 100 people, 2, 3 now African-American people, and none of them are jewelers. One of them is quality control, Samara. One of them works in our casting department, and another one works in our gemstone department. But yeah, no jewelers whatsoever. So that's, it's a problem. And when you go downtown to the jewelry district, you will not see a black jeweler. So we're pretty excited about it. It's cool. Right, so there's a few ways we do that. A couple of times, or one time a year, depending, we'll sit down and I keep a file in my office of textures, shapes, things I like, other things that I've seen, and they don't necessarily have to be jewelry. It could be like a pattern in a counter on a kitchen counter. It could be, you can pull it from anywhere. I think, I remember being in a ski lodge actually last winter and looking up, and there was a tin ceiling and it had some really awesome shapes in it. So I just took a picture of it and put it in the file for later. And so that's kind of one way. We just spend the year just looking at things around us, and then we come together. This year was, because of COVID, we were closed for a little while. So we actually just sat down and just, designed out quite a few pieces. The other way that we do them is, customers come to us with these crazy ideas and we make them. And of course, we're very careful to say. That's on the way now. Yeah. Okay, great. So yeah, we're very careful to say, listen, we'll make these pieces, but the money that we charge for the CAD fee doesn't cover the cost to design it, make a mold, the 3 times it doesn't work out, all of the rest of it, the things that you don't see behind the scenes, which you shouldn't need to even worry about. So we charge less for that. And then, we put them into our catalog, and we don't do that in an underhanded way. We do it because it's for the good of everybody. I mean, occasionally we'll have people that get very territorial about a piece. And I'll just say, listen, if you do not want this to be public, we can make it, but the design fee is going to be about $800. I've got to pay for that. I've got to cover my costs. Honestly, a lot of the pieces, they don't sell to the point that it might get a lot of likes on social media, but funny enough, a lot of the pieces that get the most likes are not the pieces that sell the most.
We see the same our end.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So we pull it from our piercing community. Of course, I look at the wider world of jewelry and see patterns and things like this. And I'll say that at first it was just me designing, but definitely now, there's more of a team approach to it. Krista, our gem lady, she'll come to me with like double-sided tape with gemstones stuck on them. For the example from this particular line was some of the kite-shaped pieces. She put some of those together. She's really good with that. And then my right hand, Jill, is getting really good at design. I'm kind of trying to pass the torch to her and let her take more of a lead because I'm getting on a little bit, and I don't want to leave this. I love what I'm doing, but it's getting to the point where I need to sort of drive the ship as opposed to be in the engine room. And she's really developing a really, really good skill. And so there's a lot of collaborative work with the designs as well. So that's how it happens. And in terms of the actual process, they start out as very simple sketches. And when I say simple sketches, I just mean as basic as to just get the point across. And then we transfer them to CAD. Look at them, change them, maybe print a wax, check it out, look, see if it's going to work, change the CAD a little bit more. And then even from that phase, you can be like, oh my God, well, that looks good. Well, what about if we do this to it? And there's a second design or a branching off of design, And then from the CAD, we'll make a master. Sometimes we get tasked or commissioned to make custom pieces. We either hand make them if they're better suited to just be hand fabricated right from the start. There's a ring that is in our engagement ring section called the Chelsea, which is a black ring, and it's got these kind of branches, and that was completely handmade, for example. Other rings are going to be CAD made and wax made. Earlet and an eyelet, anything eyelet based is going to be handmade usually, but more complex designs with a lot of gems these days, we tend to do CAD unless it's a pavé set something, and then we'll just hand pavé it if it's a one-off. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we design, Right, so I can enlarge on that a little bit. So we actually have over 200, I think about 230 different types of gemstones right now. I'm not including different grades of gemstones. For example, sapphire AAA, sapphire AA, sapphire A, opal AAA. So we have about, I would say getting on for 230. The challenge with body jewelry was always finding gemstones that are cut small. Mm-hmm. Right, because sure, when I started this, you could buy a labradorite, but it would be like 25 millimeter because it would be going in a kind of crazy brooch or something like this. Well, as we've developed purchasing power, and as we have more and more customers, we can actually request the gem cutters cut batches of these things, in the hundreds or thousands as it may be, in the required size, or even 50s, if we think the gemstone is going to be nice. So we're always on the lookout, we're always adding, and that's one thing that we want to do in the next year, because most people are not even aware of some of the gemstones that we have. It's difficult. And we do put them up online, but it would be nice to send a little newsletter like Gemstone of the Month or, Gem Shape of the Month. And in addition to offering and finding different gemstones, we'll have a gemstone that we might have in rounds and ovals, and now we can get them cut in 3 millimeter trillions or 2 millimeter 2x1 pear shapes, which is awesome. So, yeah, it is. So having and that's been always the struggle is finding gemstones that are cut and calibrated well in these small sizes. That's the other thing. If they're native cut, if they're hand cut, and they're all over the place in a small strip, they look terrible. They look like they just don't look good. Sometimes we are, I don't want to say accused of being more expensive than other manufacturers, because we are more expensive than other manufacturers, but there is a reason why. We don't just offer 8 gemstones that are synthetic topaz, for example. Having to adapt a setting for these 200 gemstones each time those gemstones are set, and that's how it's done. It's, that we make something that we feel is going to be adaptable to most gemstones, but of course there's the emerald that might be, the culet might be a little deep, or, there could be a lot of different things. So our setters have to really spend the time and set these things properly and make sure that they look good. So that's one of the reasons as well. And you're right about the amount of jewelry we offer. I mean, when you actually look at a matrix of our jewelry, right now it's at about 40,000 individual pieces and gemstone combinations that we have in our database. But if you open that out to the 5 colors of metal and then all of the different gemstone combinations, it's in the high hundreds of thousands, I would say, that is possible even now. And we have new designs almost every day. So yeah, that's the thing, and that's one of the things I'm really proud of, is that first of all, we're probably the only company that you can actually stock a whole store with. You can literally just stock a whole store, like Sacred Gold in London, for example. I mean, you can stock a whole store. And we are going to continue to strive to be that.
Fantastic.
Manufacturing at this level, basically we're like a kind of a manufacturer, a mid-level manufacturer, but everything we make is custom. So this is a real challenge to be able to manufacture, a lot of pieces, move them through production, but every piece has its own signature. Like this one might be a 16th smaller shaft. The gem could be reversed. They might want 3 prongs instead of 4 prongs. So it's really, and then how we also allow jewelers to make the jewelry is we allow a jeweler to make a whole order. We don't have somebody just churning out the same piece over and over again, because that's just going to do their heads in, right? So they get pride, and when you come to the factory, they'll be like, oh, I remember your name, I made an order for you guys, and so people build their order with pride, and then it goes through to the setter, and they set the whole order. Now, of course, we've got different talent levels of the jewelers. So we farm the work out depending on how, if it's an order with complicated pieces on it, sometimes those are split off and given to certain jewelers. But by and large, we allow jewelers to work on a whole order so they can complete the order and feel good about it.